What is up, everybody? Eric here from That's Wrestling. Thanks for tuning in on this Thanksgiving evening, or at least that's when I'm recording it, but you could be listening to it or watching it at some other time. Anyways, if you are listening to this as a podcast, it is also on YouTube. I'm doing it live at the moment. If you'd like to see those, go over to YouTube, search That's Wrestling, or also check in the show notes and you can get the link to the channel. Hit subscribe and if you want, hit that little notification bell, and then you'll be alerted when I go live with the review. If you would like to get a hold of me, shoot me an email at eric@thatswrestling.com. If you would like to get this as a podcast, you can find it in all your favorite podcast directories. Also, if you cannot find it, shoot me an email so I know which app it's not showing up in. And if you can't find it, you can always head over to thatswrestling.com to pick up the RSS feed over there and just paste it into your favorite podcast app, and you should be good to go. So tonight we are going to be talking about AEW Dynamite for November 27th, 2019. But first, let's talk about AEW Dark from the previous night, because it did play a little bit into the matches on, or at least some of the storyline on Dynamite. The major thing is we had Trent defeated Pentagon Jr. in a really good match. It was a singles match, and he pinned Pentagon with the Crunchy, which is basically Trent's half of the Strong Zero finisher. It's kind of like a sit-out pile driver sort of thing, the best I can describe it. And then there was some good video packages on there. We had both a Shanna and a Big Swole kind of promo package, which was really nice to see. And then Big Swole and Shanna had a match, which I thought was actually really good. I am becoming a big fan of Shanna. I am very happy with how her strikes look. She really lays them in there. It looks like she's, trying to actually hurt her opponent, not just kind of brush them. So that has been nice to see. Big fan of Shanna so far. Then there was also Awesome Kong versus Leva Bates, which was basically just a squash. She crushed Leva Bates, and like they have been doing, her and Brandy Rhodes cut off a lock of her hair, of Leva's hair that is, and Awesome Kong stuck it in her belt. So she is collecting some more hair. And then there was a very special match. There was Kenny Omega versus Jack Evans. They had a great match with each other here, but I mean, once we saw them in a tag match against each other, that's when I'm like, I didn't know I wanted to see it, but now I did want to see Jack Evans versus Kenny Omega. So we saw it here, and it was for the AAA Mega Championship title, and really good match. I mean, it's Jack Evans and Kenny Omega. I mean, you can't go too wrong with that one, but Omega picked up the win with the one-winged angel for that. Sean Spears was actually the color commentator on this one with Excalibur. It seems like they're kind of cycling through people for color commentary. It's rare that they've had the same person more than once, because there was Dustin when they had MJF one week, they had Sean Spears, then they had Taz. So there's definitely been a bunch of different people. I don't know if they're just going to keep doing this and just cycling people through, or they're finally going to settle on a commentary team. But I mean, I was a big fan of MJF. He was awesome as the color commentator, but obviously he is an active competitor, so it wouldn't really work out that well, because he's going to have matches with people on Dark most likely at some point. But it is what it is. As far as stuff coming out of this, the Trent versus defeating Pentagon is going to play in, because Best Friends on Dynamite are having a match with the Lucha Bros, so that will play in later. So the beginning of Dynamite for the 27th, we had JR just welcoming us there, and it shows a marching band on the ramp, and in the ring is just all types of stuff. There's some presents in the ring, and then there's all these weird blow-up characters around. And in the ring is Soul Train Jones, also known. So we had Soul Train Jones, which was really funny. He says it's going to be the greatest night in AEW or TV history, and he introduces Le Champion, Chris Jericho. Jericho comes down, all the marching band is playing, and of course he's got a big bottle of the bubbly with him. The crowd starts chanting, "Thank you, Jericho," and he tells them to shut up. He doesn't need their thanks. And he tells fans to look under their seat to find a possible coupon for 50 cents off of his new t-shirt. And then he shows off that they have actually created their own champagne, a little bit of the bubbly, that you can actually purchase at a littlebitofthebubbly.com, which is hilarious. So out of this throwaway line that wasn't even on Dynamite has spurred all types of stuff. He's got, the catchphrase now, the shirts, and now he's even got his own champagne. And yeah, so you can go buy that. It's actually not super expensive. I haven't checked to see if there's actually any left. They said there was limited quantities. So, but yeah, you can buy some. He introduces the Inner Circle to a decent amount of heat. Sammy Guevara, they all come down with different things. Sammy Guevara thanks Jericho and gives him a present, which is a life-size cutout of him and Jericho hugging. It's pretty funny. And then Proud and Powerful are up next. It's a gift basket, and they have some Vapo Rub and some flip-flops, and they also have a little bit of the 40. So that gets a 40 chant from the crowd. And then they put a Puerto Rican bandana on Chris Jericho, so that's pretty funny. And then Jericho's like, "Well, we're missing one person. Where's the big hurt? Where's Jake Hager?" And then they show Jake Hager trying to come into the arena, and he has a goat with him. And this goat wants nothing to do with what's going on, so he's trying to wrangle the goat. There's a goat I assume the owner of said goat is there as well, and he says, "Look, I got you this goat. It's Chris Jericho." And then they let the goat run back to the back again, and then Jake Hager makes his way into the ring. Then there is a giant box in the ring, and when they open it up, it's Jericho's father, Ted Irvin. He is a former New York Rangers hockey player, and he comes out and says, "Hey, it's great to be in New York City once again." And the entire crowd boos, and Jericho's like, we're in Chicago. And he's like, the home of the Blackhawks? Those guys suck. We used to beat them all the time when I was a New York Ranger. And he has a gift of New York Ranger jerseys with everybody's like nicknames on the back of them, which is pretty funny. So there was like Thug and Ruffian for Santana and Ortiz, and then there was the Spanish God for Sammy Guevara, and Big Hurt for. And he says, "I'm not going to bother reading this," and he calls in Justin Roberts to read the letter for him, which then gets a chant of "You can't read." Justin Roberts takes the mic, reads out the statement, and then Jericho's like, "I don't particularly like your tone on how you read that." And they start beating up Justin Roberts. And so the Inner Circle is beating on Justin Roberts. And then a couple of marching band members run into the ring, but it's actually SCU. And then SCU beats up the Inner Circle. And they get Soul Train into like a submission, give them a clothesline. And so this was felt very similar to like the Best Friends, or not the Best Friends, the Festival of Friendship, I believe is what it's called, with KO. So that was pretty funny. And then the announce team, like they have been, look at that. They tell you what's going down during the show. So they give out the matches. Obviously, Scorpio Sky is facing Jericho for the belt tonight. Cody returns to the ring. Pac and Omega are going to have a match. And MJF and Hangman are having a match for the Dynamite Diamond Ring, which, again, we still have no idea the point of this thing. They introduce a Marco Martinez to fill in for Tony Schiavone. Luckily, it was only for the one match, so it's just JR and Excalibur tonight. Schiavone was doing a basketball game, I believe. And since Justin Roberts was taken out by the Inner Circle, Dasha ends up taking over the ring announcer duties for the evening. Lucha Bros... So we have Lucha Bros versus Best Friends is first. Best Friends come out with Orange Cassidy dressed in a turkey costume, and while they're making their way down to the ring, the Lucha Bros attack Best Friends on the ramp. But then Best Friends manage to actually turn it around a little bit, and they hold Phoenix and Pentagon while Orange Cassidy does a dive off the top rope in his chicken costume. And then at that point, Excalibur actually made a reference that they are going after the over 50 demographic, which is a shot at NXT, since they have been heavily in the over 50 demographic, and actually AEW has beat them in all the other younger and key demographics every week so far. So a little shot at NXT or WWE in general having a much older audience, which I'm sure is going to cause problems if they cannot target a much younger audience and retain them past adolescence. I think that's currently a WWE's problem, is they're not cool. So once somebody is past the age of 10, they're not going to watch anymore, and then you're kind of out of luck at that point, because you're not going to hold them on for life if it's not cool for teenagers to watch wrestling. Marco Martinez is really quiet in the mix. He didn't even sound very confident when he was actually saying anything or saying it with any conviction. Luckily, he didn't really say much, and this was the only match he was doing. Lucha Bros keep distracting the ref or playing the ref for a fool. So that's nice to see that they're actually making effort to pull the ref away or distract him in some manner if they're going to be doing something illegal. So A+ for that. They have definitely been working on kind of doing that to stick within the rules to make it a little more cohesive, I guess, or follow or attempt to follow the rules. And then Trent gets worked over a bunch. During the commercial, Penta hits a backstabber. He actually takes off the glove like he likes to do to give chops, but he actually ends up hitting a heavy low kick instead. Phoenix comes in and He hits the ropes 3 times, like running back and forth, and then he just stops and gives Trent a back kick. He was sitting on the mat at this point. Pentagon hits a super kick on Trent, and Trent manages to grab the bottom rope to break up the pin. And Phoenix makes it a point to show that he's holding the tag rope to the ref. like, look, I am holding the tag rope. I'm holding this tag rope. Tag to Pentagon. And then coming out of commercial, Phoenix hits a spinning back kick to take out Chucky in the corner. Pentagon hits a double drop kick / stomp, I guess a drop kick / double stomp to Trent's rear end. And then Penta ends up taking too much time to set up a pile driver, and Trent manages to get a tag over to Chucky T. Chucky T ends up hitting a standing slice bread, gets Pentagon in a single leg crab, but Phoenix breaks it up with a kick. Chucky then avoids a Pentagon splash in the corner, and he overhead tosses Phoenix into Pentagon, who was now in the corner, sitting in the corner. And then Orange Cassidy distracts Pentagon for a moment. Phoenix goes for a swinging DDT or something like that. And he goes basically over Trent's shoulder, and Trent gets him right into position to hit Crunchy, and he pins Phoenix for the win. So now Trent in singles competition has a pin over Pentagon, and in tag team action he has a pin over Phoenix. So they have beaten what I believe is the number 1 contenders. So could this mean Best Friends will be challenging for the titles? Will they be getting a title shot because they have beat the number 1 contenders, or at least move up the ranks? So we'll see how this plays out, but I'm guessing this is going to play into some sort of feud or some sort of program between these 2 teams now that Trent holds pins over both members of Lucha Bros. Next up, we had B. Priestley and Emi Sakura versus Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander. I saw Chris Statlander, I believe, last week on AEW Dark, and she's quite impressive. I'm a big fan of what I have seen so far. Priestley and Sakura attack before the bell, but Statlander fights them off. She hits a shooting star press off of the apron to the floor. Eventually, Shida gets tagged in. She fights to the outside with Priestley and Sakura, and Shida gets worked over during the commercial break. Sakura has clearly gone the heel route at this point because she keeps doing various heel tactics such as raking the back, pulling the hair, and when she went to do the surfboard and she does the Freddie Mercury call back or call out singing, not many people responded at this time. It was actually more boos, so that is good. But of course, actually, this is farther down. Priestley gets tagged in, hits a running knee. Sakura keeps playing with the ref. A couple of "ref, you suck" chants because he gets pulled a bunch of times and gets distracted. Shida sets up Priestley in the corner of the second rope, so she's wedged in the corner on the second rope, and she gives Priestley a suplex. Priestley set up in the second rope and gives a suplex to Sakura, whose feet go right into Priestley's face. Shida finally gets a tag over to Statlander. Statlander has a good hot tag sequence, taking out both Priestley and Sakura. Sakura does the stupid "we will rock you" chant, and she just takes so damn long, just like I mentioned last week. And she ends up hitting the splash in the corner, so it makes Statlander look like an idiot because she just stood there for so long. But luckily, a lot of boos were directed at Sakura for this type of stuff. So this act has really garnered heat from the crowd. I don't know if that was the point, but she's definitely a heel at this point, at least in the eyes of the crowd. And then Shida and Statlander gain control for a little bit. Statlander hits Sakura with a scissors kick for a 2 count, and then she hits a Michinoku driver for a 2 count. And then behind the ref's back, Sakura hits Statlander with the mic stand that she brings down, and they pick up the win there. So Emi Sakura and B. Priestley, who I believe they've tagged a couple times at this point, have picked up a win over Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander. Then we had I guess I should, on this match, it was all right. Again, it was a little too long, and whatever Emi Sakura is doing, it's just not working for me. I'm a big fan of the other 3 ladies, but Emi Sakura just... I don't get her, and I mean, she's garnering heat at this point from the crowd, but we'll see how it goes. Next up, we had a short Jon Moxley promo. Good promo, straightforward, to the point, and he is basically declaring war on the AEW roster and daring people to try and fight him. And he says basically everyone is going to be gotten eventually by him. So short and sweet, to the point. Awesome. Cody Rhodes versus Matt Knicks was next. This was pretty much just a squash match against a no-name jobber. Cody offers a handshake before the match, and they shake hands. And Cody has a nice huge scar over his eye from crashing and burning at Full Gear. He is going to have that scar for a very, very long time. That one looks like it's probably going to be a permanent scar at this point because, it does not look that great. And I don't think it's going to completely heal up. On commentary, they talk about why Cody is still ranked, even though he said he won't be challenging for the AEW title ever again after losing to Jericho. Obviously, that's going to play out at some point, but Excalibur mentioned that even teams that are ineligible for like bowl games or whatever are still ranked. So, it's AEW who says that who's doing the ranking, and this is more of a self-imposed stipulation that Cody put on himself. So, and it was never like an official stipulation as far as AEW is concerned. So I'm sure this is going to play out at some point. But anyways, Cody hits the Os Cutter and then submits Matt Knicks with a figure 4. Obviously, this short squash match. After the match, Cody calls out MJF, but from under the ring, out come through a hole in the ring, the Butcher and the Blade, whoever that is. And then the Bunny Alley, they attack Cody Rhodes. They give him a suplex into a backstabber type of move. So it looks like Alley is going to be leading a little group of her own, but this was a really strange way to introduce someone because we have no idea who these people are. The crowd was chanting, "Who are you?" And I had to look up some of this, but Excalibur was talking like we were supposed to know who these people were, and JR had no idea what was going on. So obviously Excalibur is trying to push forward who these people are, like he knows who they are. Even though this is a completely new team. But I did look up, and the Blade is Braxton Sutter, who is actually Allie's real-life husband, and the Butcher is Andy Williams, though I don't really know anything about him other than he's a guitarist for a band that's called Every Time I Die, or something along those lines. But other than that, why are they introducing this team like this when no one knows who they are? I mean, Excalibur made it sound like he knew who they were, but obviously that's just storyline and he's adding it into it. It would have made way more sense if after this they maybe Allie cut a short promo about what was going on. I mean, I'm a little intrigued, but hopefully we get something next week. I mean, the last time we saw Allie, she was getting beat up by Awesome Kong, being led by Brandy Rhodes. So is this her way of trying to get some sort of revenge on Brandy Rhodes by attacking her husband? I don't know. It's a very strange way to introduce this team of people who nobody knew who they were. So hopefully we find out something very soon about what this team is. Next up, we had Kenny Omega versus Pac. So this is a rematch from All Out when Moxley could not make it, and Omega is tracing this back to him kind of losing his mojo a bit and going a little nuts. Nice high speed back and forth right off the bat. Omega goes for the Kotaro Crusher, but Pac ends up flipping out of it. But then Omega immediately hits a Snapdragon suplex, a buckle bomb, and then a spine buster for a 2 count right off the bat. And Pac rolls out of the ring, and Omega hits Rise of the Terminator right after that. So he is on Pac right away. The landing that Omega had from Rise of the Terminator, he kind of landed right on his rear end, pretty hard on the ground right before the ramp. But so right between the bottom of the ramp, there's a space before the pads start, and he landed right in that space on his rear end. He was shaking out his leg a little bit, but he did not sell it any further during the match, so he was probably legitimately kind of feeling something in his leg, maybe just a bruise or something like that. He gets up onto the apron, and then Pac ends up hitting him with a drop kick that sends him all the way to the barricade. Pac throws Omega back into the ring, but Omega hits another Snapdragon suplex on him. And then Omega tries to hit another Snapdragon on the apron to the floor, but Pac manages to knock Omega off down onto the floor. And Pac goes up to the top turnbuckle to do a moonsault. Last week I mentioned it was good because he looked back before doing it. This time, I'm not sure. I think he might have actually been able to see through his legs. When he got up to the top, he was kind of bent over, so I think he could see through his legs before jumping, so I'm okay with that, or at least I can buy that's what he actually did. Pac ends up hitting a slingshot cutter, so he over the top rope with Omega into the ring. Pac then goes to the top rope, hits a missile drop kick. Pac ends up slowing things down during the commercial break quite a lot. He puts on a headlock and stuff like that. He just really slows it down. Then coming out of commercial, they do a yay boo striking exchange, and then Omega hits a wicked drop kick, which sends Pac flying into the corner. So Omega is starting to turn it around at this point. He hits a Fisherman's Buster. They exchange a bunch of kicks to the face. And Pac hits Omega with an avalanche Falcon Arrow off the top rope, but he gets a 2 count. Pac goes back up to the top rope. He goes for Black Arrow, but Omega rolls out of the way and misses. Omega then hits a V-trigger, and then he goes for the one-wing angel, but Pac gets out of it, going into like a roll-up, and then Kenny reverses it into like a roll-up crucifix, and Pac rolls out of that, but Omega gets him into another crucifix roll-up, and he ends up picking up the 3 count there with a roll-up. So Pac obviously not happy about this, but Kenny Omega has avenged his loss at All Out from Pac. So this is a very good match. I mean, Kenny and Pac are are two of the best workers right now. I'd love to see these two in like a really long match at some point. Maybe if one of them, I'm assuming Omega's probably going to get the AEW World Title first, but if they had like a title match and they went, 25, 30 minutes, they could have one hell of a match, I'm guessing. Then up, we had the Dynamite Diamond Ring Finals. So this was MJF accompanied to the ring by Wardlow versus Hangman Adam Page. They had, when MJF was coming down, they had a nice little inset promo. They also had an inset promo for Page before the match started. So good. They just had, they gave quick, 15, 20-second blurbs about winning the ring. Page attacks right away. MJF rolls to the outside. Wardlow steps in before Hangman can do a dive. Hangman and MJF fight on the outside. Wardlow attacks Hangman on the outside while MJF distracts the ref, which Wardlow is going to play in as much as possible. MJF pretty much maintains control for most of the commercial break. He's working over Hangman's arm, but that never actually came into play at the ending of the match. After the commercial, Hangman turns it around. He hits a fast dive and then the moonsault to the floor from the top rope like he does all the time that he needs to stop doing, and he did not look back when he did it. Hangman sets up for the buckshot, but MJF pulls the ref right in front of him, basically uses him as a human's shield, so Hangman does not try for the buckshot lariat. Later on, Hangman does manage to hit the buckshot lariat, and Wardlow puts MJF's foot on the rope and is trying to alert the ref that, hey, his foot's on the rope. But this is kind of making the ref look like an idiot because he still has his hand on MJF's foot. He's still holding it there while he's alerting the ref. And then MJF distracts the ref, making it seem like he has something in his eye, or I believe that's what he used for that particular ruse. Wardlow punches Hangman Page in the face behind the ref's back, and then MJF actually hits the crossroads and picks up the 3 count. It was a very sloppy crossroads, but it got the job done. It landed Hangman right on his head. I don't know which one of them did not go through the move correctly. I didn't watch it back. It could have been either one of them, or it could have been a combination of both. Page not knowing how to sell the move and MJF not knowing how to give the move correctly. So, but all in all, it basically looked like a swinging, flipping DDT of some kind. So, in the end, it looked all right. And then DDP comes out with the ring, and he gets his nice rapid fire promo like he's had in the past. DDP grabs the mic. This is some DDP chants, and he says that he's here to present the very first Dynamite Diamond ring to the very first winner. And after MJF takes the ring, DDP says that some of his actions have been very disappointing to him, but since DDP is the bigger man, he will congratulate him like a man, and he offers a handshake, and MJF decides to put his gum in DDP's hand instead. Wardlow steps in between MJF and DDP, and then they have a bit of a scuffle. I think the two of them got maybe 1 or 2 swings at each other before refs and security broke it up. And actually, in the break, DDP, while he was leaving, he had a cut on his neck that was bleeding. But overall, again, what's the point of this diamond ring? They have not explained that. Like, is this something that can be fought over? Is this just something that somebody wins once in a while? If it's like a yearly thing where they just give out one of these things in a match, then okay, why should we care type of deal. Obviously, it's going to have to go to a heel because, I can see MJF in the next few weeks, showing off and bragging about his ring. But other than that, who cares who wins this ring? If there's no meaning behind it, there's no title shot behind it. Is it just that they get a $45,000 ring and that's it? I am kind of confused on what they are doing with this thing. And we are 3 weeks into since it's been announced, and it's still, as far as my money goes, means pretty much nothing. So, yeah. Dustin comes down to the ring, and he is going to get interviewed by Jen Decker. Dustin says, Jake Hager, you broke my arm, and now I'm out for your blood. But then Sammy Guevara comes down and attacks, and then Santana Ortiz attacks, and the Bucks come down for the save. They set all 3 members of the Inner Circle up for Shattered Dreams and hit it on all of them, and that was the end of that segment. So a really quick segment. Dustin is out for Jake Hager's blood, and that is about it. Next up, we had a Dark Order video package, very similar to last week. We have, I believe it was the same guy who was on the train last week who saw the commercial is now at like the support group, and Evil Uno is up front. He does not have a mask on, but they're only showing either from behind or they're not showing any higher than basically his mouth, so he can't see his nose and above. He is talking to this group saying that the Dark Order is all powerful and that people can be whatever they want to be, and join us, blah blah blah. So it's really kind of like a culty self-help meeting. And then it like flashes, and then a bunch of people who are there are now wearing like the creeper masks, yeah. I am curious where this is going to go. Is Evil Uno the head of Dark Order, or is there somebody above him? Is he just kind of a leader of this chapter? Or is he actually the top of the food chain in the Dark Order? Because Stu Grayson, or just Grayson at this point, I don't remember if I know they took away his name for 1 week. I don't know if that's sticking, but is Uno the top man? They basically said, or Uno said that Grayson was like his first disciple or whatever. So I don't know where this is going. I'd like to see this be fleshed out a little more on how this structure is. And I think it would be better to have maybe some other person pulling the strings of this whole thing, at least at some point. And then there can be a bit more of a faction. Because right now we just have Uno and Grayson, and that's it as a tag team. But this kind of feels more like a faction type of deal. So you figure there'd be at least a couple more people involved. Maybe that'll happen and they'll recruit somebody over to the Dark Order and they will now be, competitors under the Dark Order faction. I'm a huge fan of factions. I like to see, the factions built out more. Like, I'm a huge fan of how New Japan has all their factions, Chaos, Bullet Club, Suzuki-gun, LIJ, and they have a couple more. But I like how they have like their factions, and they're actually all relatively large factions of at least 5 or 6 people. And I'm a huge fan of that kind of thing. So we have Inner Circle now with 5 people. We have the Elite, even though it hasn't really been as fleshed out of the Elite of having Cody, the Bucks, Omega, and Hangman Page was in the Elite, but he's left the Elite. But that's a whole... All right, so why don't we get into that for a moment? So Omega left the Elite on being the Elite, but they never showed it on TV. They just mentioned it twice on commentary. So they need to be putting... If things are going to be canon on being the Elite, they should show the clip from being the Elite on the TV show if it's going to play into the storyline on the TV show. This has kind of happened a couple times. Not everybody, not even close to everybody, is watching being the Elite. They get, 100 to 200,000 views. You have 1 million people watching Dynamite. So you need to be putting this stuff on Dynamite so people know what the hell is going on. They're not going out to watch Being the Elite. And Being the Elite is very esoteric anyways. And not everybody is going to even want to watch Being the Elite because people don't like that type of comedy or anything like that. If it's going to be canon, cut the clip out of Being the Elite and play it on Dynamite so everybody knows what's going on. And people who are watching Dynamite, you got that 1 million people and you only have 100 to 200,000 views on a Being the Elite episode. Those 800,000 plus people who are not watching Being the Elite are probably not listening to podcasts either, like this one, who I'm talking about Being the Elite. They're not, so they're going to be completely out of the know. And you don't want your casual viewers to feel like they are not involved or they don't know what's going on or that there's all this inside information that they're not privy to for some reason. And that's going to turn people off to watching the TV show if you're not putting it on the TV show. Same thing if you build up something important on AEW Dark, you need to be putting that on Dynamite, at least the clip or some sort of backstory so we know what's going on. You can't just put stuff on these other ancillary shows and expect people to know what's going on when they're only watching Dynamite. Anyways, going into the final match, we have Scorpio Sky versus Chris Jericho for the AEW World Championship. They say that seconds are banned from ringside for this match. I noticed that Jericho is still rocking his weight belt that he had specially made before the Cody match. He wore it last week too. There's a little back and forth at the beginning. Scorpio Sky takes over for a bit, hitting Jericho with a drop kick on the outside, a slingshot shoulder tackle in the ring, stomps on the ground. Jericho turns it around with a springboard drop kick to Sky, who is on the ring apron. They fight on the outside for a bit. Jericho throws Sky back into the ring steps, and eventually they get back into the ring. Jericho gets some kicks in, some punches in, and Jericho goes for a suplex, but Scorpio Sky ends up hitting a suplex of his own instead. Sky then hits a Luthez press and some punches, very similar to how Stone Cold used to do his. He hits a drop kick and hits a ace crusher, which is a slingshot cutter. Scorpio Sky goes for a drop kick off the second rope, but Jericho catches him, turns it into a Walls of Jericho, or I guess they are now just calling it a Lion Tamer. Sky manages to get to the bottom rope. Aubrey and Jericho end up doing some word exchange. So like pretty much every match that Aubrey Edwards has reffed with Jericho, they have had some sort of banter. It's just a little thing that I find amusing when it happens. Sky hits a cutter and puts on a dragon sleeper, and then Jake Hager runs down to the ring, and Sky attacks Jake Hager when he jumps up onto the apron. Okay, so seconds are banned, but nothing happens. Why are there no consequences when Hager comes out? the ref doesn't even bother to try to get Hager to leave, which could have at least acted as some sort of distraction of the ref right there, because they would be paying attention to trying to get the person thrown out. Anyways, Jake Hager jumps back up onto the apron, but then the other members of SCU come down and take out Hager, and they fight to the back. With the ref distracted with this fight going on, Jericho grabs the title. He swings and he misses Scorpio Sky. Scorpio Sky hits a TKO. The crowd is going nuts. They bought into this so hard, but he ends up only getting a 2 count. Sky hits a Rana off the top rope and then an Enziguri for another 2 count. The crowd was so into these near falls, thinking Scorpio Sky might actually beat Chris Jericho. Sky goes for a cross body off the. He runs towards the turnbuckle and he does a turnaround cross body, and Jericho hits the code breaker for a 2 count. Sky blocks the Judas effect, and he turns it into a roll up. But then Jericho ends up putting on the Lion Tamer, and Sky taps. So it looks like they might actually be building up Jericho's Lion Tamer / used to be called Walls of Jericho to actually be a submission again, because I don't think I've seen anybody submit to Jericho for a very, very, very long time. After the match, Jericho puts Sky back into the Lion Tamer just to add more insult to injury, and Jon Moxley's music hits, and he comes out of one of the walkways. He walks down a few steps in the aisle, so he is up on one of the stairways, just looking down at the ring, and then the show goes off air. So here it looked like they were running a little long on time for this, because Moxley was standing up there on the stairs for quite a while before they finally went off air. So they were just trying to kill time a little bit. It wasn't a ton, but it did make it a little awkward. But overall, this show was not my favorite, but it was still pretty good. I mean, there were a few things they could have tightened up a little bit. The Jericho promo at the beginning was feeling a little long in the tooth eventually. I think it went 15 plus minutes, 15 to 18 minutes, something like that. So this is a very long in-ring segment for AEW. This is definitely the longest one they've ever done. They're going to have to be careful with these. They don't do them too often. In this case, I was thoroughly amused by this segment, and I was chuckling the whole time. And I had no problem with this. If it went much longer, it was definitely going to be pushing the sports entertainment land, and going south. But with Jericho, his delivery and his style of comedy works out, and he's just a master at doing these things. And it did not feel like it went south for me. I really enjoyed the segment, and but I wouldn't do it with too many other people other than Chris Jericho, because it could go south really fast. As far as, we have Best Friends and Lucha Bros, they're definitely going to move into some sort of feud, I'm guessing. Well, I'm guessing because, Trent has pins over both of them now. Don't know what's going to happen with the women's match. I mean, Hikaru Shida, I believe, is number 1 still. I think she's the number 1 contender. But it's feeling like they're giving... I think they're giving a little bit too much time to the women's matches. I think they're going a little long for the level of wrestlers that they have. Obviously, they're going to need to build up these skills for these longer matches. And I don't know if it's just because they don't have, some sort of performance center or some sort of, developmental brand, if you will, or some sort of partner partner promotion where they can send their people to work shows other than on Wednesday to get some more in-ring experience. I think that would probably be the best way to go. Is they need to partner up with a couple smaller promotions, some indie promotions, and send their more green wrestlers, the ones that need more experience, to go work their Saturday and Sunday shows, to get that experience. WWE has had partner promotions forever. They had Ohio Valley Wrestling before they moved into was it Florida Championship Wrestling, before NXT. They always had somewhere to send their people to work off ring rust when coming back from an injury, or to train new talent, or stuff like that. So AEW is going to need to partner with some of these promotions to get their people more ring time, and find some way to get these people into some training, so they can train more than what they're currently doing. I don't know if they need to partner with some existing school, or if they just have to start their own. But they are going to need some way to develop talent that they have, get them trained, and have time for, if there are people who want to work on stuff, have somewhere where they can be to do that stuff. If they want to try a new move, they need rings with crash pads and all this stuff set up so they can go do these things and get more experience. But they definitely have to work on getting some people a lot more experience and ring time, and they're only doing Wednesday night, so that means their talent is free for any weekend shows that they can get on. So I think they should definitely find a partner promotion or partner promotions that they can be like, okay, I'm fine with, that they can have some say over who they work with, what type of matches they have and stuff like that. So they can have a little bit of control over the matches if they are going to use it as like a training ground. But I mean, that's definitely something that they should be looking into. Yeah. And again, we still have no idea the point of the stupid diamond ring. Hopefully something comes out of that. And then we had the introduction of Butcher, Blade, and Bunny. Okay. We're going to need more information than what we've been given. And Excalibur treating it like he knows what's going on and nobody else knowing what's going on is a little strange, and especially to the audience in the arena who don't hear any of that commentary, so they have no clue of what's going on. And unless you were in the first few rows, you probably wouldn't even be able to recognize that was Allie, because she is wearing kind of like a masquerade party bunny mask. So she had, mask on her eyes with little bunny ears. So, you wouldn't even known that was Allie if you weren't sitting close up. So, yeah. So if you were in the arena, that probably would have been even way more confusing, which is why they were chanting, "Who are you?" and or stuff like that. Another thing, I will harp on it once again. I feel like I'm talking about it every freaking week. They didn't even mention AEW Dark at all. Not once. What are they doing? They have to promote the stupid thing. I mean, last week was Omega versus Jack Evans for the AAA Mega Championship. Why did they not even mention that was happening on Dynamite? And again, and they didn't even mention that it happened on Dark. So on this show today, they didn't even mention that it happened on Dark. They didn't mention what was going to happen on Dark on Tuesday. But, I don't know why they don't. Because there was Jimmy Havoc versus Brendan Cutler. Who really cares about that match? Sonny Kiss versus Spears, which is probably a okay match. And then there was Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt against Santana and Ortiz. That's what's coming up on AEW Dark next week. They didn't mention it at all. Why are they not mentioning? Are they ashamed of AEW Dark? I mean, they've had some really good matches on there. And I expect Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt versus Santana and Ortiz is probably going to be a good match. But I mean, they had Jack Evans and Kenny Omega for the AAA Mega Championship last week. They didn't mention it. This makes absolutely no sense to me why they do not say anything about AEW Dark. Nothing. And it is baffling to me. AEW Dark matches are supposed to matter, but they treat them like they don't. They treat AEW Dark like it doesn't matter. And somehow they treat being the elite like it does matter, when being the elite is mostly out of canon 95% of the time. So I don't know what they're doing with they are not treating all the auxiliary content the same. And they're not treating the auxiliary content that is supposedly supposed to matter as being something that does matter. And that is really annoying me. That is something that they need to be on top of, and they need to be promoting. And it makes no sense why they don't. They need to be pulling clips out of being the elite if it's important. They need to be pulling clips out of... I'm totally spacing on what Cody Rhodes' show is called. But anything that they are putting up on Twitter exclusively, or it's on AEW Dark, anything that is setting up some sort of match, or there's a promo that they put up on Twitter and that's it, they need to be putting the stuff on Dynamite. They could scrap an entire match off this card and put in those type of things, and it'd be perfectly fine. I would not miss most of these matches. They could easily have been put off. They didn't need to happen tonight. I mean, they could have easily they could have pushed Omega versus Pac to next week. That didn't need to happen on this show. They could have just scrapped the women's match off this particular show and used it to build up characters, get promos in here, and further storylines of what actually needs, what the audience needs to know about what's going on elsewhere in their universe, because not everyone, once again, is following them on social media. Their social media presence is smaller than how many people are watching Dynamite. I mean, just in the US, you have 1 million people watching Dynamite. And then around the world, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm assuming I'm guessing there is probably at least another couple 100,000 watching outside of the US, if not more. I'd be very interested in what Fight TV's numbers look like, or what the rating is on ITV, on ITV Hub, because they put it up Thursday evening, the night after. It's like I guess technically it's like a 16-hour delay or something like that. I'm curious what those numbers are, but I'm almost certain that there's at least another couple 100,000 people watching outside of the US. So I mean, you have easily 1.2 plus million watching AEW Dynamite. They definitely don't have that many subscribers on YouTube, followers on Twitter, followers on Facebook. And being the elite only gets 100 to 200,000 views per episode. They need to put this stuff. If this auxiliary content is going to be important, they need to promote it on AEW Dynamite for people to go watch it. And if it's not important, then fine, but don't have part of it be important and part of it not be important. And if it's going to be important, you got to promote it. That's it. That's all. All right. So there we go. Thanks for watching my review of AEW Dynamite for November 27th, 2019. Thanks for watching or listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can get this as a podcast on all your favorite platforms. If you cannot find it on your platform of choice, shoot me an email, eric@thatswrestling.com, to let me know which you can't find it on. You can also snag the RSS feed address over at thatswrestling.com and paste it into your favorite listening app, whatever you want to call it. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you can watch this live on YouTube. Just search That's Wrestling on YouTube and you'll find the channel. Hit subscribe, or it's also in the show notes of this episode. I plan on doing these at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern on Thursday, the day after Dynamite airs. I try to do New Japan stuff as it comes out. Obviously, I have a lot of World Tag League to watch, but so far what I've seen has actually been pretty good. If you'd like to shoot me an email or with a question, suggestion, discussion topic, anything like that, you can send that to eric@thatswrestling.com. You can also find me on Twitter, That's Wrestling1 with the number 1. And yeah, until next time, I'll see you again. Thanks for watching, guys.